Welcome to the Seraphine Podcast. I am Seraphine Arocha, and today you are going to meet the beautiful Jenny Martin. Hello.
Hello, Seraphine.
I am so glad we're sitting down today. It's kind of cool to be in this particular kind of format, especially with someone who is new to my life. So you and I actually connected a few months ago when you were putting together your first event here in Kansas City for Yoga Brain. Was that like the first?
That was the first coordination for Yoga Brain. And I think I reached out to you in August.
Yes.
Because of our mutual friend Celeste.
Yes.
And we had a full ass hour conversation on FaceTime.
Yeah.
Like one text and then just like bam.
No, it was so great. And I love people who when you're reaching out and networking, what I don't like about networking events is that it feels very superficial and very quick and it's almost like what is that? That
speed dating?
Speed dating, yes. And I can't do that. I can't do it. I won't do it. And I also think it's important that when you are networking, there is that sense of, okay, if I don't have the time to talk to you today with the 50 people that are here, if you really connect with someone, do what we did, which is like, let's sit down, let's talk to each other. And then also, when you're in a public person kind of persona, which, you have been, you're an author, you have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful history of being super vulnerable and speaking in public about it. And I'd like to just kind of start out today with a little bit of history of who you are. For those viewers who aren't familiar or in Kansas City, most yogis or in the yoga world probably have an idea who she is. But for those of you who getting to meet her for the first time, I'd love you to give a little background about how you got started, how Yoga Brain got started, and a little bit about your writings.
Sure. Well, Yoga Brain was an idea that happened only a couple months ago. I've only been a teacher for about 18 months now. So I'm very new to the yoga community in Kansas City. However, it's becoming my life, my joy, my purpose. But we'll back up into, being born here in Overland Park. I was a swimmer. I grew up in the country club atmosphere, not understanding where my family kind of stood. I always compared my parents' like minivan to all my other friends' Mercedes-Benz. So I had a really misconstrued idea of what wealth was. And I know I wanted something similar. And I went to college wanting to get my MRS degree. I wanted to be a mother right out of graduation. And I thought I found that man to live that dream out. But during that time in college, I was a swimmer. I was also very anorexic. And I did everything that I could so that I could uphold this image of being thin, of being beautiful, of being successful. And success back then was having a beautiful boyfriend so we could have this beautiful life and start a beautiful family. But when swimming got too much and the school got too much, I just said, F it. And I quit and I studied abroad in Italy. And there was a moment there where my eating seemed pretty, I don't want to say controlled, but I wasn't counting every calorie like it was in college because I didn't have to worry about swimming. I didn't have to worry about performing, but I was starting to worry about what was I going to do after I graduated, right? Like I was traveling all around Europe, having so much fun. And it wasn't until that last month that I was finishing my fall semester as a senior where I was like, oh shit. I have to graduate in May. I have no plans. Everyone here is much younger than me. And that's when I started binging. And that stayed with me for years and years. So I ended up saying no thank you to the corporate 9-to-5. And I found a job on cruise ships for a year selling artwork. So that went into this different persona of success where I used to want a family. Then I just wanted people to think I was cool. I wanted people to look at me on Instagram and see, holy shit, she's out in like Aruba today and now she's out in Jamaica. And I lived for that type of affirmation until I realized that was really tearing me down because I wasn't coming from an authentic point. I was coming from a point where I just wanted to be an inspiration so badly that I didn't take a look at who I really was. Mm-hmm. But it didn't stop there. I only got even more sick and even more in my head. And I did a whole year in Korea where I taught English in Seoul. And that was the hardest year of my life. I call it the year I didn't die, because it was like every day I woke up with this fiending for food. I would wake up in the middle of my sleep and run to 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. in the morning just so I could buy a candy bar. And I've never shot up heroin. I've had my bouts with drinking and drugs, but there's no itch that I ever felt as hard as what I wanted to do with sugar in that year of 2016. So when I was done with that contract, I knew there was absolutely nothing that I needed to do besides get healthy. So it took me a whole year to really ground down. I mean, when I came back to Kansas City in 2017, I was still very much going back into, I kind of like wanted to live out my 20s in Kansas City like I didn't for the first 5 years of my 20s. So I immediately jumped into friend groups that I had known from high school. We were drinking every weekend. We were going on those apps every day, like swiping through like crazy, just needing to feel like we were wanted. And it took me about a full year to realize, and a 9-to-5 job, to realize that this is not that stability that I came home for. And it was when I really developed my relationship. It was a friendship that I had when we were younger, but really came back full circle, was in 2017, was with Celeste Ellis, which is how we're kind of sitting here today. And Celeste has been my teacher. She has been my friend who showed me the path to become a teacher. And she's still going to be my core, someone that I always call to when people are looking at me for help, and I'm really needing to fill up my cup through someone that I always find help through, and that's through Celeste. And then it was 2019 when I finally was like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this thing I've always felt inside me, which was become a yoga teacher. And it was through that training that I really realized like there's nothing else that's going to fulfill me than leading my path as a leader, as a teacher, as an author, and as someone who can be a vehicle for healing. And I wasn't able to heal others before I healed myself. And it really took a matter of shedding away friends, shedding away lifestyle habits, and not standing by anything besides taking care of myself.
Now, you're also an author. How long did it take you to write that book?
So I have 2 books out.
You have 2 books, and what are they?
Well, I have one out. The first is poetry called Emotionally Bankrupt. And while I came back to Kansas City and I got a full-time job and I started doing the bumbling things, I started dating this guy for 4 months or so, and he just crushed me on that 4th month, and I poured out poetry like no other. It was kind of like it came as just like a response, a reaction, and then it kind of made a goal to write 4 poems a day. How many can I write? And then I was like, oh, I have 100 poems. Let's make a book out of it. So I published that last April 1st in 2019. And then the book that's always been inside me, the book that I know that this is going to change not just my life, but millions and millions of others. I knew like, I can't just put this off, and I can't just have it in my head anymore. And it was a year ago, 11/11, today is November 10th, and it was 11/11 last year where I said, no more procrastinating, let's sit down and write it. And I finished it March 1st of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm in the editing. I took a whole summer off from editing, and I'm telling myself tomorrow on 11/11/2020, I'm going to get this bitch done. I'm going to find, I hired an editor. She's made the edits. Every single sentence has a line through it or some type of comment. So hopefully I get it done by the new year. But I also don't want to rush it. It's art, it's something that's going to happen, but the goal is to have it sold by spring of next year. Who knows when it'll be published, but I want it in a publisher's hands. I want that contract. I want to know that it's going to be in a hard copy, and it's not going to be on me to publish it this time. I want it to be that big opening for what a memoir is, what a memoir could be, and a story about someone who traveled the world with everyone's eyes on me, thinking that I lived this great life, but it's like, hello, this is what really went on. And I want it to be that opening for everyone else. Like, you're very open with what you're doing here, but if you're not talking about the shitty days, like no one's going to want to listen.
No, it's the whole theme of the podcast. My name Seraphine is it actually means angel, but fiend is devil, basically, when you look it up. And it's kind of that balance of your angel and your devil on your shoulders. And I do believe that it's interesting. I think all women to some degree go through kind of a cathartic experience of what does it mean facing their demons. I think your 20s are so like, you feel like a goddamn train wreck. And, your 30s, you start to kind of like, okay, I'm getting my sea legs, but fuck, I still am like running into these cyclical behaviors. And I finally got comfortable in my skin at age 43. And it took me a while, but I think that the benefit that we have is the privilege we live in. Like, there's not very many women who can go and travel the world. Like I traveled a bunch. I moved all over the place. But a lot of women are stuck in their hometowns. They're stuck behind the counter of Burger King, and they're trying to figure out, like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And I think it's so interesting because I do believe you're right. When you start to show the darker side of what people would immediately be like, oh, poor you went on a frickin' cruise ship, whatever. And you're like, no. There's a lot of layers here. You start to bring into the forefront the emotions and the different layers that go along with trying to look like, again, you've had it all figured out. Why wouldn't you have it figured out? Came from a good family, get to travel all over the place. And then everybody gives that kind of like, oh. And I think that, what attracted me to you is this big openness to learning about different people, especially in the yoga community. Celeste Ellis is a dear friend of mine. She was on, I think, my second or third podcast that I had. Mm-hmm. And to be completely transparent with you, I remember the first time I met her. She's younger than me. I remember being this teacher. I'd always been, yoga, Pilates, whatever. And here's this woman who is almost 15 years younger than me, comes in, is 10 times more flexible, super sweet. And I immediately felt this pang of like, what a lot of women I think have is like this trying to figure out like, you can't be that sweet, like women are always pitted against each other. What I love is that Celeste completely is this open-hearted woman who she gives me the same vibe as you do, in the sense of she's open to kind of fuck up and kind of say what she means, but then can also say, oh shit, I want to learn. Can you describe to me, that yoga training with her, what brought you to her as a teacher, and then your yoga training, your experience, what changed?
So she was already teaching at a studio and asked if I wanted to be part of the training. And I told her, Celeste, that's my biggest goal is to become a teacher, but I want to do it in India. And she goes, we both know you don't have the money or the time to go to India right now, Jen. And I said this in my first day of training, which was, she told me, she goes, do you want to go to Harvard undergrad, or are you going to be ready to go to Harvard Law? So let's just go to get a good undergraduate degree, and then you can go to India for your Harvard Law.
That so sounds like Celeste. I love it.
And I was like, okay. And she was able to get me into a trade program. So I was able to get a discount, because at this time I was working 4 part-time jobs. The highest paying one was at $11 an hour, living at my parents', literally waking up, doing a 5 o'clock job. Mm-hmm. And then my last job would end around 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And
humbling, isn't it?
I don't know if much has changed, but things are changing. It's always getting better. It's always like the next job is $1 more, and
totally.
And I'm willing to do it. But either way, last spring, it was an intensive 200-hour, only 2 months long, and I really, really was just like, you know what? I don't need to spend time with the women and men that want to just get messed up on the weekends. And I remember my last time I like got to the point of drinking to get drunk was that time of my life. And I'm just like, now I go to parties and they're really difficult for me because I just feel like everything's so intense when I start to put in anything into my body. The training itself, Celeste was a facilitator. So she was only there a couple times here and there. And I've always looked up to her as not just a friend, but someone who it seems like we're always at different ends of our lives. Like she's now married and I'm someone who's just like, I'm ready. And like we've saw each other at different times of dating and different times of our own mental crises. And she was able to really like reel me in and not tell me what to do, but show me the way of her path from totally neurotic and depressed. And it's like, and also being patient enough and showing me that this path takes and requires patience. Now, the training itself was wonderful. I flourished. I met some of my favorite people in my life through that training. And at the end of the day, they never hired me. And I was crushed. And during that time where they didn't hire me, I also got declined and rejected from a lot of other places and people within that week. And because of that, though, I had to forge my own way. I started doing corporate yogas and private yoga trainings. And it wasn't until my birthday party this past June when I collected all my yogi friends together and we like had a little dance party and we had a DJ and a bonfire. We were like, oh my God, we should throw a yoga festival. And the next morning I started.
I love it. I love it. I love that through no's, yeses happen. And I think that there are reasons why doors close. And it's funny because, when going back to being humbled, I think it happens throughout your life. I think the moment that you think like, oh, I got this, like for me, I remember my first yoga training and then I went to my second and it just felt so different.
Yeah.
And I think that the beauty of learning and to being open to things is, and meeting new people. That's the other thing, is to keep your circles just circulating. Actually, you have your tight group, but I do think keeping the doors open is so essential because you never know who's going to come in, who, if you listen to them and listen to their story, what they bring to your life, what curiosities they spark in you. From that moment of the dance party by the bonfire, talk to me about how you started from a fun night, just the brainchild, and how did you put it together?
I started reaching out to all my friends that teach, and I put something on a few yoga groups on Facebook. So I was able to collect around 20 people. I started recruiting, like I would go to classes and I was just like, would you like to, there's one thing to reach out cold. I like to voice note on Instagram. I think I voice noted you because there's a cold message that may not be seen, but when I hear someone's voice and I know when I give my voice, that's going to resonate a little bit more, even if they're like some girl that I've never met. Yeah. They're going to be like, oh, she took the time to actually like think about it. This isn't just copied and paste, So that's how I reached out to people. We were able to get, I don't know if it was like 18 or 20 teachers. And then for me, I knew I had to work backwards, right? Like what's the hierarchy of needs? Fundamental place. Where are we going to have it? And it actually flip-flopped. We were going to do it in this park, and then it ended up being granted to us by another local teacher in the area, offered her land because they hadn't done anything with it. So thank you, Mara, for that. And from there, it was just like, okay, water, food. We're not going to be able to do food this year. Water. Okay, got to get some water jugs. Okay, next, what do we need? Volunteers, vendors. So I started just like literally reaching out to everyone I knew. And then it was like, okay, marketing, media. again, people either being able to trade in their work, their value and their time, or offer some of their work at a very low rate. We were able to take some great footage, do some promotions, and then it just came down to letting it go. And for me, with someone who's such a doer, who's so masculine, and I know we talked about like love a little bit downstairs before we got on the recording. I'm really working on how to be a feminine woman, because I can act, I can go, I can set a goal and go, all my tasks are done. But when it comes to receiving ticket sales, having people come to the event, there's nothing masculine about that. I must literally like turn my phone off, go meditate, go on a walk without any type of media in my hand. And then I come back and it's like, oh, 2 ticket sales, you know?
Yeah.
That's how it's been working, because I have to learn to just like let it go. So that was kind of the series of events. And we ended up getting 200 people.
That's amazing. I mean, when I saw what you created, I mean, for me, I'm always in awe of people who just have an idea and they just go balls to the wall and they don't accept no for an answer. And the other thing is that, you know, when the community here in Kansas City is so diverse, and not diverse as in it's how it's taught, how yoga is taught. And I feel like there definitely needs to be more of a way to understand that there's no wrong or right way, especially when it comes to the physical postures and people just being in their body and moving. What's been the most difficult challenge for you, putting a yoga event together with all different walks of the yoga kind of community here? Was there any big challenges that you had to overcome?
Definitely. I mean, I lost some friendships because of it. And I don't want to like assume things, but I know there's been chatter of like, she's going after fame, she's going after publicity. And I am. Like, I do. I want a lot of eyes on me because what I have to say will save lives. And I felt that the second I was 17, when I was like, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be really big and it's going to help a lot of people with eating disorders. And why would I not want to grow? Why would I not want to meet as many people as possible? So I think the biggest challenge has been trusting in everything, just staying cool in the last couple of weeks, or, you know, right before the event. And also just being grateful for the people who do show up, because I'm always going to want 10 times as many people to come. I'm always like, oh, we could fill the room with twice as many. And it's just like, well, what about the people here, Jen? Like, all these people here are getting so much out of it. It's okay. It's okay that you didn't like get this big number. So for me, it's just being completely present with the people who are able to come, showing them my thanks, and not worrying about the little nitty gritty, just trusting that like ground zero had to start somewhere, and we started.
Well, and if your message is authentic. So when, you know, it's interesting because I've talked to a few people who they have the title of influencer, and, you know, here at the podcast and my team, we really adhere to this kind of idea of we don't want to influence, we want to have an impact. And it's not about creating a bunch of like followers, because I don't want that. I'm not the Messiah. I will never be anything close to that. I'm a fucking train wreck. And all I like to do is I like to share people's stories, and I'm curious and I want to learn. So that knocks me off the pedestal right away, because I'm not trying to be anyone's guru. And I think that was the hardest part, because I walked away from there's a master teacher program, you know, and it was, I think, 60 hours left. And I was like, I'd been in it for 240. And I was like, you know what? This does not align with who I am. And there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure when you're in what I call the yoga teacher kind of all-knowing. So I guess my question to you is that since you have a message, and your message, I'd like you also to clarify what that message is, how it correlates to the yoga practice. When you have that kind of message, and you want it to be heard, is there any part of you that feels, do you ever feel like sometimes you've shared too much? Or do you feel like the more that you put yourself out there, the more vulnerability you show, that it's necessary to really be in that kind of teacher, guru, person that you teach from kind of place?
Yeah. Well, just touching on the guru, I always make a joke when I talk about Celeste to other people, and I tell Celeste, I'm like, she's like my guru, but she's not, because she's no better or worse. Yeah. Because none of us are.
I hate the fucking word. I'll be honest with you.
Like, shake it off.
It bugs me. But I also understand that when you sit in front of a classroom and you share a strong message like the one you're sharing, which again, I'm going to have you talk about your message and how it correlates with yoga. Even if you're not asking to be someone's guru, it can be dangerous.
Oh yeah.
So how are you navigating that? First of all, what's your message? And then, and why do you think it needs to be heard? And then navigating how to kind of pull back from the guru title or that teacher or the lead. Because again, once you put leader, once you're organizing these spaces, a lot of people start to do the...
Yeah. Oh yeah. I understand that already from after leading something and just like getting that response. With Yoga Brain, our message is to make yoga accessible, fun, and inclusive. And that's why we're going to have free events, and we're also going to have events that are going to have a higher ticket price, because it doesn't matter who you are. Yoga is for everyone. It doesn't matter how physically able you can be a vegetable. And as long as you are attentive and self-studying, you're practicing yoga. And I want people to understand that for Yoga Brain, is that it is all size fits all. We're just growing, and I want it to be an attractive thing. It's like, I want people to come in and be like, what's this about? Oh, we just meditate and then we have a little mixer and that's yoga. Yes, that's Yoga Brain. For Jennifer Martin, for where I want to do with Jenny Eats the World, my memoir, and who I stand by as me, I came from a point where I had so many people looking at me as this ideal of success or adventure, or what it would look like to be like someone to want to aim for, right? But I didn't have that inside me. And I want people to understand that you are acceptable in every shape and form, no matter what stage of life you are in. You are always going to have room for growth, but you can start at any position. And when it comes to your body, there's nothing that's going to permeate it than your own self-love, and that your health comes first. There's no way that you can foster love in a romantic relationship and friendship with your own family unless you identify yourself as worthy. And I was able to do that through a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, and through sharing my story. When I was hiding behind my disease, I came across as like, I'm okay. Like, I can put on makeup, I can wear baggy clothes. People don't need to know that I just gained 15 pounds in literally 3 days. And I had such like a confident front about me. And it's kind of this balance of how you ask, like, how vulnerable can I be with people still taking me seriously? But then how can I also be of a leader and be strong? And I think I'll be learning about that my whole life, because I want to be as blunt and as open as possible, but I also need to watch what I say. Like, I feel my throat chakra buzzing all the time. And there are so many times where I'm like, I literally just just like said the opposite of what I meant to say.
Yeah.
And it's just because I just feel like everything's just trying to come out at once. So as I mature, as I progress, as I have more conversations that are being recorded, they're being broadcasted, I want people to understand, like you said, I'm always a work in progress.
Totally.
You know, I ate a lot of sugar the last 3 days, and it was all because I was upset around some dude. And it's like, oh my God, Jenny, you've gone so far. You know, like I've written a full book. I've written 2 books. I've done all this. Like, have some self-credit, you know? Yeah. But when I tell people like, oh, it's been a hard day, or like I ate like a lot of sugar yesterday, that brings me down from whatever high that I put myself in. And that's not always a good high. It can be a neurosis high. So I think I have to do a little bit of both every day. Finding the boundaries, because I really struggle in boundaries. Finding like, okay, do I need to actually talk about this right now? Or can I wait until I'm with people that like really get me? But at the same time, like when I talk about my eating disorder to straight strangers, they appreciate it, because whether they've thrown up or haven't, they either had a moment where they thought about it, or they've had times in their lives where they didn't feel like they appreciated what they saw in the mirror. And I just want to be that spokesperson to tell you, you are so much more than what you see in the mirror. And you will fall in love with the person that you see in the mirror, even if you think that that's really, really far-fetched right now. But you will eventually fall in love with your reflection and fall in love with what you're doing. It's just going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of inner work. And that inner work is it doesn't cost a retreat to do that inner work. It costs maybe a pen and a paper and, some meditations that you can find on Spotify for free.
Who do you credit holding up a mirror to you in terms of really seeing yourself in all of the mess and the beauty? The person who said to you, hey, are you okay? Or the person that says to you, God, you look beautiful today, and you believe him. Do you have a few of those people that hold up the mirror that you don't feel like, for the longest time, I think, especially in my 20s, even the people that had the best intentions with me, I always felt like there was an ulterior motive, or they were my parents, or sometimes you just don't hear, because you still see yourself as that person, who's recovering. And I think from having an eating disorder myself for the longest time, I think you're always in recovery to some degree. Yeah. But it's interesting when you really do listen, and you really do hear, and you really do see yourself. So who do you have any people that come to mind?
Celeste is always going to be a huge cheerleader.
Yeah.
I have a friend from high school who also was struggling with bulimia before I started. I was restricting for many years. And then it was like I got so hungry, my body was like, all right, it's time to eat. And then I ate for about 6 years straight. And this woman from high school, I remember a phone call with her when I was in Korea, and I told her that I had just gone admitted to the ER. I had broken out in hives all over my body. I found out that I could have died that day. I was shot up with steroids, given a ridiculous amount of antibiotics. And I called her. It was like, I know that you threw up for many years. Like, how did you stop? How did you stop? And she's like, Jenny, you need to come home. You need to come home and get help. And I ended up doing my whole contract. I ended up staying 5 months after that period. But she and I had drinks a couple months ago, and she's just like, you look seriously so happy and so healthy. And it's hard because I make friends so fast and so easily, and I'm always having coffee with a different person. I'm realizing I need to figure out who my core people are forever, ever. Like Celeste is, but she's got a whole life, you know, and I feel like who my strong people are is something that I'm still really working on.
Yeah. And being patient.
Yeah.
It took me forever. I think I look at my friends in my 20s. I can maybe count 3 I've kept. My 30s. Sadly, you know, those are, you know, I moved a lot of different times in my life. I met my person, my man, my husband, at age 38. I got married at 40. And I think the key is that to just really relax and try not to go looking for it, because so many people, I think, have the best, like what I call the introductory intentions, where you get super excited about someone, and you know you see the relationship, the friendship, whatever, all play out, and the beauty in it is just not forcing it and letting it unfold in front of you. But it's hard when control. I think that's the beauty of when you have overcome something, as gut wrenching as like an eating disorder or alcoholism or drug use or hell, even someone dying and being addicted to the idea of mourning the person. I think it's so important in this day and age that if you have a story where you've overcome something, that it's no longer about the actual act. It's actually about the will inside of you, and where you like every day is a chance just to be a little bit better. You're just trying, and you're taking one step in front of the other, and some days you fail fucking miserably. I think the hardest part about when I started to talk about my eating disorder was it's stereotyped as a white person's disease, a privileged disease again. And what's really is so gut-wrenching about being in this world right now is that everybody's going through different things. And I feel like we're so eager to want to connect, but we have a world that is so wants to cancel us or shut us down, or because we're being bombarded by this world of feeling. And I think your generation especially has got such a weight on its shoulders to be authentic, and are you the real deal, and what language are you using, and are you speaking from a place where you're thinking about others. And I think what I love to see is just trying it out. What I love is people trying it out and knowing that you might get slaughtered. I have been slaughtered I don't know how many fucking times in my life. And the beauty about getting slaughtered is that you learn real quickly. And when I first spoke to you, I was like, God, there is this girl with this beautiful heart, with this amazing energy and feeling of like you were in the middle of COVID and you wanted to create something. You didn't want to shut down. And the hard part is that you're now in this community that's the yoga world, which is so much love and so much whatever. And with anything in this day and age, the more you get older, the more you realize people are going to look to tear you down, especially if you're trying to congregate, share your knowledge, and then give it a try, like trying it out, getting your baby yoga legs, and you get them knocked out from underneath you. I've had them knocked out from underneath me for so long. But the beauty is that you have the power now to get up, because guess what you did? You started to heal yourself from an eating disorder. You can take a few harsh words. And I think that's the cool part about what you're doing is that you're each Yoga Brain event, every time you get on a microphone, every time you start to tell your story, it's pretty cool how you'll start to understand that your story can relate to so many other things, not just an eating disorder. And I think that the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I like to lean in to people who I like in some ways, like I said with Celeste, like I was like, oh boy, another young yoga girl in the community. What's going on? And it's that vulnerability inside of myself of how can I be better? And I'm getting older, so that's not always the best thing, according to society. But when you lean in and you start to really understand where someone else is coming from, and then you learn from each other. So I'm curious. I've learned a lot from travels, different groups of friends, but I learned a lot through the trial and error of relationships. Talk to me a little bit now as we kind of start to wrap this conversation up about how your journey has brought you into this woman in her mid-20s and what you're looking for in a relationship.
Well, it's been a long singlehood string for me. After my college sweetheart, I basically jumped ship and I was on ships. I had a little bit of a boyfriend there for a minute from South Africa, a photographer. Yeah. And
I love those accents.
Yeah, I think I was more in love with his accent than I was anything else. But really, since that dude, I was just a fool, and I was being so foolish, and I had no respect for myself. I was doing the apps, doing the thing that you do with these apps, and it wasn't until last year, after the last time I had basically like my whole relationship history is a really beautiful relationship in college, and then like a pretty good relationship on the ships for a hot month.
Yeah.
I still want to see him in Cape Town.
Come on,
so
you're on a
it was
ship.
Worth it.
You're on the ocean. Who doesn't want to be in love?
Yeah, and I was like,
they are?
well, our contract ends at the same time. I could go visit you, so let's try to bring this up a notch. So. But I was basically having one night stands, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. And then I met a guy. It was a one night stand who turned into a 2-night stand, who turned into a 4-month relationship. But it was very toxic. I don't think I met him sober. Yeah. And he helped me produce all this poetry, and he helped me also say no to a certain drug that I'm done, you know? So thank you for tainting me around that. And then during my yoga teacher training, I was like, okay, I have a new sense of self-respect. And I was having some dates, and then I was just like done. But right now, my bar is so high. I worry if it's almost too high. And then it's like, no, but I'm not going to settle.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's hard because I'm on apps. I started like last week. I was like, okay, this elemental retreat is done. I can like have some focus on a man. And it's just like, he's got to meditate. He's got to be open to meditation. He doesn't have to be a full-blown yogi, but I want him to like come to class with me or want to be interested in that. I've always said he's got to be smarter than me. He's got to be stronger than me. And he's got to have at least the same sense of adventure as I do, and have a creative side, a very creative outlet. And that's difficult because I'm smart. I'm not like a genius, but I have like, you've got to be able to be with it, with our conversations.
Challenging you. Yeah.
Exactly. And I thought I saw a guy, and then I was like, oh my God, he's like so adventurous. This is too much. But honestly, like, it shouldn't be that hard, but it's been really difficult. And I think a lot of men my age just kind of sleep through their lives and are just waiting for like a hot chick to cuddle up with. And I'm not going to be that hot chick to cuddle up with. Like, you have got to push me. You have got to show me that like we're going to change the world together.
Yeah.
And, if I have to wait a couple more years, then I have to wait in a couple more years. But I do feel really good about keeping my bar high. And at least I'm not being toyed around like I used to.
Yeah. And you're working on yourself.
Yeah.
From somebody who is a serial monogamist since, I don't know, 8th grade, actually 6th grade, Andy Suhumsky. We talked about him this last podcast. I literally defined myself in the eyes of the person and my worth through the guys I was dating.
Yeah.
And it took me, I don't know, it's still, it's funny. I still have moments where, when I see myself reflected in my husband's eyes, it sure feels fucking good. I can't say. I wish I could say that I went for more than, I don't know. I think that the longest time I was single was maybe 3 to 6 months, maybe. And I can't tell you that it's any better. If anything, it was harder. I got married at 38, and some people would call that old. I call it perfect because I waited. But, you're working on yourself now. And I think that's the beauty of it. And have patience, because at the end of the day, what's so beautiful is the relationships that you want in your life. They come to you, just like he didn't even want. So Ace is at my feet right now, and he's having a moment saying, "Mommy, attention." This guy wouldn't even give me the time of day when I first met him. But now look at you. You're wanting me to conclude my podcast, aren't you, Bubba? I love you. So yeah, I think you're doing all right. And I'm really excited to see what is going to happen for you in the next. I'm going to challenge you, finish that book. I want you to come back on the podcast. When you finish the book, we can talk about maybe a little book tour around Kansas City, and God knows what'll happen. And I am so excited to see where your yoga brain evolves, because you've got a big heart. And then also, before we go, the beauty about this podcast are people who are trying to give back. So talk to me about what's coming up in December, and then also future endeavors, where your wishes are to spread those philanthropy wings.
Oh my God, all my dreams will take another hour on a podcast, but Donation December, we've rented out Equal Minded Cafe's event space off 42nd and Troost. It is free yoga classes every 5:30 and 6:30. We are ringing up a bunch of teachers who weren't able to teach at the Fall Festival, and this is all raising money. Every penny will go to our first scholarship.
That's awesome.
And it's going to be an essay. So we're going to open it up to students of minorities or of marginalized backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And we will grant them up to $3,000 for a training of their choice. And they'll be writing us an essay of why they want to become a yoga teacher and what yoga has done for them. So our goal is to raise $3,000 by the new year and open up that application by the new year, because there's a lot of teacher training that comes up in the spring. And that's going to just, oh my God, I just can't wait to meet that man or woman who we award it to you. And because teacher training changed my life. Yeah. And I know we've talked about, like, I've been single for 8 years, but man, do I like my company more than I like some punk ass dude's company. Yeah. So get yourself a yoga teacher training, know your worth. And then when it comes to 2021, I want a global book tour. I want Jenny Eats the World to become a movie. I want to play my girlfriend in it, and I want Samantha, I forget her last name right now, but what
movie is she in?
She's in Ready or Not. She's Samantha Weaving.
Yes. I love it. Yeah.
Samantha, you're going to play me, and we're going to be friends one day.
I love it. You're like me. I try to speak things into existence all the time. I'm like Drew Barrymore. I'm going to interview you. Jared Leto. I already hired your stylist, former stylist, one of them that worked with you. And Robert Smith, hopefully he will still be around by the time I get to him. I freaking love The Cure. But yeah, speak it into existence, because girl, I believe that, you got to put it out there. Yeah. And you spoke Yoga Brain into existence, and look at it now. So I love it. I'm so glad that you came today. I would love you to share with my viewers where they can follow you, where they can find you on social media, and where they can donate.
Yes, Yoga Brain KC is Yoga Brain KC on Instagram. That's also our Venmo. We have our Patreon, which offers meditations and journaling prompts every month. And then my personal is Jenny Eats the World, with periods in between. And it's jennyeatstheworld.co. And that's going to be all my like all my posts, those are raw, man. Those are my posts where I'm just like, okay, public journal for everyone to read, please. Like, today's been shit. I want you to know why and that it's going to be better because I put it out there. So it's been really fun to have the two and have those two platforms and what they're able to do. One's like all about self and one's all about like unifying yoga community.
I love it. Well, keep at it and know that sometimes a large audience doesn't matter. I mean, usually what ends up happening is you grow from authenticity and you grow from the small because your voice is true. You're not trying to perform for anyone. Believe me, my old ass has learned a few lessons there, and I'm still learning every day. But with that, I'm going to sell my soul to the devil right now. And if you like this episode, please subscribe. I know. I just got done saying it doesn't matter, but it does matter. In the end, it really does. Please subscribe to the Seraphine Podcast. And as always, I just feel really lucky to be doing what I do and have the team that I have, Team Fiend. We've got so many good things coming up. And thank you. You are a doll, Jenny. I'm so glad that you came on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. See you guys later. Bye-bye.